Among the many traditions that shaped daily life at St Anne's School, few carried as much influence as the prefect system. To the younger girls, the prefects seemed almost like an extension of the teaching staff themselves. They wore polished silver prefects' badges that gleamed proudly against their navy blazers, carried themselves with quiet confidence, and were expected to uphold the school's standards at every moment of the day. The prefects even enjoyed privileges that set them apart from the rest of the pupils. They had their own meeting room near the assembly hall where they gathered each Thursday afternoon. They were permitted to use the impressive front staircase rather than the crowded side corridors, and they entered the dining hall before everyone else. Such privileges reminded every girl in the school that becoming a prefect was considered both an honour and a serious responsibility. At the head of this respected body stood the school captain, Margaret Elwood, a thoughtful and determined 17-year-old whose sense of duty bordered on the formidable. Margaret believed wholeheartedly that discipline, courtesy, and good order were the foundations upon which St Anne's had earned its fine reputation. Each Thursday she presided over the prefects' meeting with remarkable maturity. Around the large oak table, notebooks were opened, reports were read aloud, and discussions followed concerning repeated breaches of school rules. The prefects carefully considered each case before deciding whether a pupil should receive a warning, be assigned detention, or have her name forwarded to the deputy headmistress for further action. The range of offences that might be reported seemed endless. Running in the corridors, untidy uniform, muddy shoes, talking during silence, lateness to lessons, answering back, forgetting homework, or showing what the staff described as insolence, could all result in a report being entered into the prefect's record book. Although the prefects possessed considerable influence, there remained one authority that they did not officially possess. Unlike some schools of the period, St Anne's never permitted prefects to administer corporal punishment. That responsibility rested firmly in the hands of the teaching staff alone. The headmistress, Miss Beatrice Blyton, was unwavering on this matter. Discipline involving the cane or the slipper, she frequently reminded both staff and senior girls, belongs solely to those entrusted with the education and welfare of every pupil. Authority without experience is a dangerous thing. Her words became something of a guiding principle throughout the school. Even so, a prefect's authority could feel every bit as intimidating to a nervous first-year pupil. A girl who was caught whispering during preparation, neglecting her duties, or failing to show proper respect, might find herself ordered to spend an afternoon polishing the brass door handles that lined the entrance hall until they shone brightly enough to reflect her face. Others were instructed to rewrite untidy exercise books from beginning to end, copy pages of school rules in flawless handwriting, tidy classrooms after lessons had ended, or spend a lonely Saturday afternoon in detention while friends enjoyed precious hours at home. For many younger girls, these punishments felt almost as severe as anything a teacher might impose. There existed another unwritten rule that everyone seemed to accept without question. If a prefect reported a pupil, then the prefect was almost certainly believed. One older girl summed up the prevailing attitude rather bluntly. "If you had done nothing wrong," she remarked one afternoon, "you would hardly have been reported in the first place." It was a simple statement, yet one that revealed much about the unquestioning trust placed in senior girls. Unfortunately, such confidence occasionally allowed injustice to creep quietly into school life. Most prefects carried out their duties with fairness and maturity, but not all possessed the same sense of balance. As in any position of authority, personalities differed. Some prefects showed patience and kindness towards nervous younger girls, quietly correcting mistakes before they became formal offences. Others, however, were rather less forgiving. Certain prefects developed obvious favourites, overlooking minor faults committed by girls they liked while taking a far sterner view of others. Equally, a handful developed personal dislikes that gradually influenced their judgment. A timid first-form pupil might find herself reported repeatedly for the smallest offences, while another escaped notice altogether. Among the members of staff, it was Miss Fenwick who first began expressing concern. She quietly observed that several younger girls appeared to be receiving punishments not because they had broken genuine school rules, but because they had dared to question the authority of particular prefects. Her concerns eventually reached the ears of the stern but deeply principled deputy headmistress, Miss Harcourt. Rather than dismiss the matter, Miss Harcourt undertook a careful investigation. She examined report books, questioned teachers, interviewed several junior pupils privately, and compared accounts over a number of weeks. What she discovered troubled her greatly. One prefect had repeatedly singled out the very same first-form girl for the most trivial matters imaginable. Untidy handwriting one day, a loose tie the next, walking too slowly after lunch, speaking too softly during registration. Each incident had been transformed into a formal report. It soon became painfully clear that this was no coincidence. The prefect had allowed personal dislike to replace fairness. Miss Harcourt acted without hesitation. At the next whole-school assembly, before the assembled pupils and staff, she announced that the prefect concerned had been relieved of her badge and all accompanying responsibilities. An audible gasp swept through the assembly hall. Never before could most girls remember a prefect losing such an honoured position. For many of the younger pupils, it served as a reassuring reminder that even those in authority remained accountable for their actions. Later that afternoon, Miss Harcourt addressed the remaining prefects in their meeting room. Standing before the long oak table, she allowed the silence to settle before speaking. "You have been given authority," she said calmly, "because the school trusts your judgment. That trust is a privilege, not a reward." She looked around at every face before continuing. "Never imagine that a silver badge places you above those you serve. Leadership is measured by fairness, patience, and integrity, not by the number of girls you can report." Then, with the quiet firmness for which she was respected throughout St. Anne's, she delivered words that many former pupils would remember for the rest of their lives. "You are here to serve the school," Miss Harcourt said, "not to imitate tyrants." For years afterwards, those words remained one of the unwritten lessons of St. Anne's, reminding every new generation of prefects that genuine authority was earned not through fear, but through fairness, wisdom, and example.